Welcome to today's session on helping you help your clients to build better teams. I am joined today by Matt Livsey from Black Ink HR. So, welcome, Matt. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. I think that's more the thank you, isn't it? Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining us. So I am Matt Livsey, director of a company called Black Ink HR. So I suppose I've had the pleasure of working in HR for almost over 20 years now and built some amazing organizations. Now, that's not a boasting thing. What I want to say about that is I've built those successful organizations purely on gut feel, without the science to back it up. And unfortunately, as Jasper over in Copenhagen constantly tells me, gut feel isn't scalable. So actually, what do we do? So certified in Predictive Index, leadership and management consultant, and team performance consultant also. When I'm not suited and booted, I am either playing taxi to my children or I am on the farm, which is a sheep and beef farm. So the picture on the right hand side is one of the things that I absolutely love. It's my happy place. It takes me away from HR. Okay, so why are we here today? Ultimately, the question. So pop in the chat. Who wants to become the most important person in any business? So we do want this to be an interactive session. So please drop any chat, ask any questions in the comments, and Kim is absolutely in charge of that and will feed back. Okay. So fundamentally, 80% of business problems are people problems. So this should make you one of the consultants, the most important people in any business. So essentially, we fix problems and we remove our clients' pain points. Okay, so what we're going to run through today, it is jam-packed. I absolutely hate the fact that we've got 7 points. I like to keep it to 3 or 4, but we'll see how we get on. Hopefully, it won't be too broad brush highlight for everyone. But we're going to look at why is the predictive index different, understanding people, putting the right people in the right seats, how to help your clients in better coaching culture, how to help your clients resolve employee relationships, how your clients can take the lead on using behavioral science tools and allowing you guys to add true value to the organizations, and the impact of putting the wrong people in the wrong seats. Now, hopefully, we're going to have a bit of a laugh along the way. There's some pictures of Kim. Kim very kindly told me I wasn't allowed to use her LinkedIn profile, so she sent me some nice ones. So me being a mature Yorkshireman, have graffitied all over them. So why is PI different? Okay, first and foremost, how many people in the session today have actually heard of the predictive index? Okay, none. I think I actually had a woohoo moment today on LinkedIn chat, and I had the first person ever in the UK to told me that she'd used PI and loved PI. I was like, oh my God, amazing. So would it surprise you guys if I told you that the predictive index has actually already delivered over 35 million assessments worldwide? Okay. So the reason that we are different is we're not an assessment tool. We are a talent optimization model. So the way that this works is your clients have the business strategy on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side is the business, the results which they want to achieve. And in the middle is their people. If you align your people to your business strategies, you will succeed your business results. Okay, we've got 5 core modules that we use within Predictive Index, which makes up talent optimization. We've got hire, inspire, design, and diagnose. Okay, PI is the only tool on the marketplace which can be used across the whole of the employee lifecycle. So it's not just a recruitment tool, it's not just a learning development tool, it supports you across the whole of the employee lifecycle. So typically when I go into businesses, we talk about the top 3 people problems, and what I hear a lot, and I'm going to ask you guys to comment what the biggest challenges that you face going into businesses. But the ones that we hear a lot is attracting talent. How do we get that talent into our organization? Actually, we've got disengaged employees. How do we address that? And we've got an aging workforce, or companies are wanting to shape culture, they want to do change management, or they want to hold on to the talent that they've got. So in the comments, just put either your top one, your top two, biggest pain points that your clients have that you go into businesses and address. And Kim, if you can call them out, then that'll be awesome, please.
Say for me, disengagement would be a top one. Maybe they've got something that doesn't work. We've got dysfunctional teams
Yep.
that I know you're going to be digging into in a lot more detail, so that is absolutely going to be covered.
Yeah. That dysfunctional teams is absolutely, yeah. I talk about this a lot with business leaders. Imagine if you put a team full of Ronaldos, into one football team. It'll be a disaster. Okay, he's an absolute genius on the football pitch, but imagine having 11 of those. It'll be an extremely one-dimensional team. So you're absolutely right, Kim. We are going to dig into that. Okay.
Yeah, and can I
So,
please just put another comment in, especially in a hybrid and remote world,
oh,
because it makes it a lot harder if you're dealing with people and you're not seeing that body language, the facial expressions. I know a lot of people have their cameras on Zoom calls and things and Teams meetings, but if they don't, then they could be talking and you're not getting that extra level of communication from them.
what 100%. And the way that I describe it is it's the difference of going to the theatre and going to the cinema. You go to the cinema and you have a great experience, but it doesn't. It's never the same as going to the theatre. You go to the theatre, you feel it, and that's the difference for me personally of in-person and online meetings.
Mhm.
So, and they've
Uh-huh.
both absolutely got their place in business. Bringing people all together for no reason, waste of time.
Yeah.
However, if we've got a specific reason that we're bringing people together, we've got a specific learning objective, then the right thing to do is bring those people together.
Mhm.
Yeah. So the journey that everyone wants to go on is from good to great, great to world class. But that doesn't happen by accident. It requires purposeful action. And the one thing that's often overlooked is awareness. It sounds so basic. And at Black Ink HR, we talk about awareness on three levels: self-awareness, team awareness, and organizational awareness. If you can get awareness on all three levels of that, it's almost like business leadership enlightenment. It's absolutely amazing. Wait for my slide to actually move on. So, question for you guys. Who knows who this horse is? Anyone? I know Kim does, so be quiet. Anyone else know who this horse is? Yeah, okay. Well, whilst Kim's managing the chat. So this is Red Rum, arguably one of the best steeplechase horses of all times. And what did you say, Kim? It can only be one of two horses if I'm putting a horse picture up.
Well, we said three, didn't we? So we've got Red Rum, we've got Black Beauty, and we've got Silver.
Yes, there you go. Yeah, three famous horses. So this is Red Rum. Okay. So my question to you guys is, would you put Red Rum in the shafts of the beer Tetley cart to pull a cart full of beer? Or let's flip that question. Would you put a shy horse in the Grand National and expect it to win? Well, you're all going, Matt, that's ridiculous. Why the hell would we? But actually, we do this all the time in business. We put the wrong people in the wrong seats and expect them to succeed. A shyer horse in the Grand National would be a disaster. It would come last. And guess what? We all know that. Okay. So, a question for you again in the comments. Tell me, how self-aware are you? Are you very? You're all right. you're not very self-aware, or eek, I absolutely hate these types of questions. I know personally, I hate these questions. So Kim, give some comments what people are saying.
So we've got one for very. I would
Oh,
say that I'm probably very as well. But then I love doing these kind of assessments because I'm like, yeah, it's not telling me anything that I don't know, but it's reinforcing what I already know,
yeah, and this is
isn't
one
it?
of the yeah, and I actually think that's a really valid point there, Kim, because it's one of the things that it was kind of like an epiphany moment, relatively recent for me, that when we do readbacks, it's about validating what people think they know about themselves. And you're almost looking at a closed book. Actually, what people should be doing is looking at the bits that don't resonate with them, and they're actually our blind spots, and that is how we increase that self-awareness. Okay. So we're saying that we've got some fairly self-aware individuals on the webinar today, which doesn't surprise me given the type of activities, the type of work that we all do. Okay. But the science tells us that 95% of people believe that they're self-aware, whereas actually only well, technically between 15 and 17% of people truly are self-aware. Okay, so there's a huge discrepancy. So I call these people that are truly self-aware unicorns or four-leaf clovers, because they're really rare, they're almost magical. And if we flip this stat on its head, that means that 80% of the people that we interact with on a day-to-day basis lie to themselves about themselves every single day because people think they know themselves, but actually, truly, they don't. Okay. So what typically happens in business is, they think that they understand people, and what happens is we look at what we call in PI language the briefcase, so knowledge, skills, experience. So Kim, you went to Harvard, you got a PhD from Harvard or, degree, oh my God, you must be the best L&D person in the world. Okay, the problem with looking at things like knowledge, skills, education, and experience is it's where unconscious bias comes in. I was on a call yesterday with somebody who's gave me a comment, quite a bold comment, and then they turned around and said, "Well, I can probably get some research to back that stat up." And I was just like, "Okay, so basically, you're going to confirm, or you're going to research to back up your own stat because that's what you're doing. That's confirmation bias." And this person is like, "Oh, right, okay, okay." So, so this is a typical approach in business. They purely look at the briefcase. They do not look at the full person. In PI, it's all about understanding the person. Okay. So we understand the head, the heart, and the briefcase. So effectively, we're giving people 2/3 additional data because technically that's what we're working with, data points, to know the person, not to make assumptions, but to scientifically know people. Okay. One of the things that we won't really touch on today is cognitive assessments. We're purely talking about behavioral, but cognitive assessments or cognitive data is the best predictor of performance in the future, way better than a behavioral. And also, it is the least used data point in any change management program. Now, you can go out and ask loads of business whether or not they use cognitive ability to help them on change management. And I can guarantee that 99.9% of people say no, you know, but cognitive ability is your speed of learning. You could take me and Kim through the same change management process. Kim's got high cognitive ability. She's bored because it's too slow. Mine's low, so therefore I'm struggling. You lose both of us on that change management program. Okay, so I'm sure you guys already know most of this, but why do people behave as they do? Okay, so again, in typical business, if you only look at behaviors, you have to guess at what somebody's drives and needs are. Okay, And that can be dangerous because there's so many assumptions there. Okay. If you measure drives, you can very accurately predict what somebody's needs and associated behaviors are. Okay. So the predictive index, behavioral assessment, scientifically measures what people's drives are. That assessment takes anything between 4 and 6 minutes and is 2 questions. So really, really simple. So we've already said about how important understanding the full person is, but why am I calling out self versus self-concept for recruitment? So, well, self-concept is who turns up when people are watching. Self is who turns up when nobody's watching. Self is the authentic self. It's the unconscious behavior. Self-concept is constantly changing. Our behaviors are constantly changing because it's human nature. We want to fit in. But guess what candidates are doing when they're applying for a role? They're mirroring, they're wanting to fit in. They're going to go on the webpage and look at the company cultures, their values, and they're going to say, that's me. That's me. So if you've got this person in front of you, who do you actually know or how do you know who the authentic self is? It's a bit like my LinkedIn profile picture. My wife wants to know where she can meet that individual. She swears that I'm a catfish because she thought she was signing up to that. And guess what she got? This. That's unfortunate, isn't it? Okay. So let's have a look at the stats around, behaviors. So when it comes to recruiting, and I'm aware that you guys probably don't touch a lot of recruitment, but there's a reason why I'm telling you this, is 75% of hiring decisions are based on education and experience. Only 25% of hiring decisions are based on behavior. Now, when it comes to dismissals, 95% of those dismissals are based on behavior. So again, there's a huge discrepancy in the behavioral usage in business. So my question is, if it's that obvious on a stat, why don't more people use behavioral and cognitive data at recruitment? It's absolutely crazy. And quite honestly, you put crap in, you get crap out. That's the polite version of that, by the way. I won't go into the full, but it is that simple. If you put the wrong person into your organization, it doesn't just cost you money. It costs you time, it costs you headache, you disengage engaged people, and they will leave because if you don't address performance issues, then they get fed up. Okay. So the best that you can ever hope for if you put crap in is that you get the crap out. Any questions, Kim, on the chat, or should we just jump through?
No, we just like with the previous slide with those figures on, it was like never really thought about it like that, how the focus shifts from skills to behavior so much in the hiring and firing. And it's and Kirsty's mentioned it's a very interesting way to look at it. And in just this whole concept kind of boggles my mind because yeah, it makes complete and utter sense, but I'd never really thought about it.
No, no, no. And this is one of the reasons that I love doing what I do, and I love talking and educating people because when we think about it, it's common sense. It just makes sense. But you don't know what you don't know. So if I can lift those heads, take the blinkers off, and make people think differently, then for me that's success. Okay.
Mm.
But you're absolutely right. And I used to work for Welcome to Yorkshire, one of the best tourism agencies in the world. And I used to say to them, their chief exec, I can put the world's best marketing director in this business, but if they pee you off, you're going to tap me on the shoulder and ask me to sack them. And that's the reality, and who really deep down enjoys that bit of the job? I don't. Okay. So misalignment, where does it actually go wrong? Well, a lot of leaders won't agree with this, but actually it goes wrong at the top. that boardroom, unless if a business has got a really slick aligned strategy, then there will be misalignment in a business. When you look at company culture, over 90% of businesses have an accidental culture. That's crazy. Over 90% of businesses aren't even thinking about the behaviors, the values, or anything like that. It just happens by accident. And a culture is just a behavior which isn't challenged and it's allowed to continue. So the culture isn't set at the top because there's generally one or a few people. It's set at the bottom of your business where the mass majority of people are, which is another reason why you need to start understanding the behaviors of those individuals. Okay, so this chart here is a real life example. Is the recruitment of a business development exec. Okay, this is for a professional sports club based up in Yorkshire, and I asked 3 directors to tell me what they thought this business development exec role needed to be behavioural wise. We also did cognitive. And the answers that come back are fundamentally different. How can you be collaborative and independent? How can you be really highly driven, yet almost situational steady? And how can you be flexible and precise? Ultimately, what they're doing there is they're talking about multiple individuals. Okay. And the reason that this misalignment comes into play, and we've already mentioned it partly, is because there's so much unconscious bias that plays out. I can guarantee you 2 of those individuals were thinking about recruiting mini-me's. They weren't truly thinking about what's going to add value to the business. Okay. So what happens when we get these role profiles back is it allows professionals to go in and facilitate a conversation. It allows us to facilitate that conversation to say, right, okay, put your personal feelings, your unconscious bias to one side. Let's work on how to remove that. But what does the business truly need for this business development exec to be successful? Okay. Once we do that, we lock the profile in. That's a behavioral and a cognitive. Okay. So this is what it looks like when we actually lock it in. We agree with them. Everybody at that table, all the key stakeholders know that we're looking for an independent, very social, very driven, and flexible individual. So when somebody who turns up who's collaborative, reserved, steady, and precise, they go, hang on a second, that's not the person that we're looking for. That isn't what success looks like for our business. Okay, so we've got this amazing candidate here who applied for the role. Who thinks that this candidate would be a good fit? No, you don't.
Shocking, just from the sunglasses alone.
They're some of your better sunglasses, by the way. So you can see that the behavior, the authentic self of this candidate that's applied for this role is the polar opposites of the behaviors which the role actually requires. Okay. So the system will score them out of 10. They'll score them out of 10 for behavioral and cognitive ability. It'll give you an overall score. So at the best, sorry, Kim, you're a 3 out of 10. Not cutting it. Okay. This guy, however, oh my God, look at that. Absolutely independent, very social, very driven, very flexible. Don't forget, it's a catfish. It's not real. Okay. So this person is the perfect fit. Now, out of all the clients that I have supported with recruitment using behavioral and cognitive assessments, I've only ever had one individual who scored 10 out of 10 for a behavioral match. All the rest we generally get 7s, 8s, or 9s. So 7 is amber, 8 and 9, 10 is green. Okay. But it gives us known data points. Okay. Because we don't want to listen to Matt and PI, we actually say, you know what, this Kim, we really like her. We want to interview her. Okay. So what PI does is it goes, okay, well, we know the individual, we know the role. Well, we automatically create these interview questions. Now, these questions are specific for the individual. They are specific for the role. Okay. So these questions are generated to prod blind spots and validate strengths. It could be that within this interview, Kim says, well, actually, I know that I've got a high level of independence. However, to get the best out of my team, I know that I need to bring more people into those conversations. I use my little bit of extroversion at times, and I make them feel warm and friendly when we're collaborating and making those decisions. And you go, my God, actually, she has got a good level of self-awareness. So actually, is that an issue that she doesn't land in the box? No, it's not. Will that behavior be truly authentic? No, it won't. But does that mean that she can't deliver it? No, she absolutely can. But the further that we ask people to move their self data points to a role, the more physical and mental effort it takes. Okay, so Kim, you absolutely smashed the interview. Did absolutely brilliant. Well done. Okay, nice glasses, by the way. Okay, so then what happens? Well, this person comes on board. We can support you with onboarding guides and everything like that. But actually, how do you help your business embed a coaching culture at the grassroots level of business? Because I think everyone talks about coaching cultures, but actually, how do you embed it? Well, actually, PI gives you coaching guides. So again, it looks at the individual, it looks at the role. Okay. It says that Kim was a 3 out of 10. However, as a manager, these are some of the questions that you can start to ask Kim about stretching, dialing up and dialing down her behaviors. Okay. So effectively, it's a dummy's guide to coaching. Now, it doesn't negate the need for exec coaches, performance coaches, culture coaches, the true value add activities. And this is whereabouts you can support your clients to embed a coaching culture. And instead of you having to do really base level coaching, you can do the stuff which is transformative, the activities which are truly going to transform organizations. So this is a relationship guide again at PI because it's got understandings of everybody's behaviors. You can plug. You can plug 2 names in, and it tells you what people's relationship strengths, caution areas, and relationship tips are. Okay. So typically what happens when there's conflict in a team and a manager has to step in and support is the individuals forget about their relationship strengths. It's all negative, negative, negative. It's emotion. Okay. So they focus on the relationship caution areas. Okay. So bear with me 2 seconds whilst I make this screen here bigger because I can't read it. Okay. So mine and Kim's relationship strengths. And I said to Kim, can we have a laugh? Can we use our data? So Matt is eager to start conversations. Okay. Huge strength. And Kim and Matt are patient, respectful, and accepting of each other. Kim and Matt communicate informally. Okay. But where's the friction? So Kim may dominate the agenda. She's got a lot higher independence than what I have. Kim may be overwhelmed by Matt's eagerness to have a conversation. I would walk past, sit on Kim's desk, and she'll be like, "Will you sod off?" Okay. And Kim and Matt will be mindful of each other's feelings, but it may slow down communication. Okay. So we might be too polite to cut through the crap. Okay. But more importantly, what can we do to actually help and improve this relationship? Well, there's 4 points on there. We won't read them out because it'll be painful. But Kim may be the one who tends to set the agenda, but Kim should make sure to let Matt have his say. Pausing to ask Matt for reactions or feedback, as well as giving credit, acknowledgement when Matt has had a great idea or suggestion. Kim, stop nicking all my ideas. Okay, so this is whereabouts the relationship guide actually comes in and starts helping managers. Other guides that we've got to support managers is, and this is why PI is not just an assessment tool, it is a talent optimization tool. So they've got 19 support documents for leaders and managers. Okay. This enables you guys to focus on the true value add stuff. Taking those clients from good to great, great to world class, and taking them on that journey. The job assessments, the interview guides, the onboarding kits, coaching guides, relationships, personal development charts, management strategy charts. The management strategy chart will tell the manager of Kim how to get the best out of Kim based on her behavioural profile. Okay, so it's a dummies guide. It's basic, but it's a starting point, which means that you don't have to get into the weeds of the nitty gritty, the lower level stuff, and you can add the true value. Okay, so mugshot, sure, I've seen these three on TV somewhere. But who can spot the odd one out? Enough of my talking. Somebody put something in the chat. And who's actually the odd one out? Or my question to you, can you really tell the odd one out just by looking? Oh, you're on mute, Kim.
Damn it, sorry. Guy in the dinner jacket, we're getting in chat. I would concur with that, but I would say also that the red tie. See, you could pick any of them as being the odd one out for all different reasons.
It's about perspective, isn't it?
But the person in the dinner jacket with the bow tie is a heck of a lot more formal than the other two.
It was a formal awards dinner.
Okay.
So technically we were the odd ones out. But the fact is, it is about perspective. You can't really tell, because it depends on how you're viewing a situation. Okay, I would say that the odd one out is Ben on the left-hand side wearing the red tie.
But you're both in matching suits. So you and Ben are in matching suits.
We're not.
From his tie and his shirt.
Yeah, yeah. So shirt, tie, shirt changes the formality of it for me. But that's a map perspective. It doesn't mean that I'm right. Okay, so when we start talking about aligning teams, we use what's called an opposing values framework. And the way that this framework works is top right is all about innovation and agility. Top left is teamwork and employee experience. Bottom left, process and precision. And bottom right, results and discipline. So the three individuals, this payroll team that sit on this chart in the bottom left, they are all about process and precision. Payroll, it's fairly important that you follow the process. Otherwise, we pay people incorrectly. So these people in the bottom left can do teamwork and employee experience, and they can do results and discipline. But it's the equivalent of us asking them to write with their non-dominant hand. Okay. Can you do it? Yes, you can. The more you do it, the better you will get. But is it ever as authentic as writing with your dominant hand? Now, unless if you're ambidextrous, the answer to that is no. Okay. Where people can't operate is diagonally. So these three individuals who focus mainly on process and precision can't do innovation and agility. Okay. They can maybe dip the toe in it, but that's as good as we get. Okay. So they are great at designing, embedding, and following process. This team here of three is a payroll team. They've worked together for 20 years. They can finish each other's sentences. They know if someone's off sick, they know exactly where to pick up. Okay. They've just acquired a new business. They've just taken on another 5,000 employees. Okay. So they need to go out and recruit. Okay. This individual here is the perfect person. At interview, this individual here said all the right things, talked about process, how important process is. Okay, so we're blown away at interview, but hang on a second. Oh, let's wait. What's actually happened here? So it's more than a 3 out of 10, but it's definitely not a 10 out of 10. Okay, so question to you guys again. Would you recruit that individual into that role? Of course, you're all going to say no. It's like asking a Shire horse to run the Grand National. Go on, Kim, were you going to say something?
Well, I was just going to say, I know this is fake me, but if I feel that I can do that job and I can adjust myself into what it needs me to do. So if I'm someone who is too sociable, I can rein that in and not go and spend half an hour making a cup of tea because I'm chattering. And I can, so there are things that I could do to adjust, but unless I knew what they wanted, I wouldn't be able to.
Correct. What 100%. And we can be anything we want to be. We can achieve anything that we want to achieve. And that's where my 9-year-old shot me down and said, I can't fly to the moon, can I? So it's like, well, you probably could. He said, not without a spaceship. Thanks, 9-year-old. But we can be anything. We can operate with our non-dominant hand. Can we do it? Yes, we can. The more that we do it, the better we'll get. But it's never as authentic as writing with your dominant hand. Okay. So the more that we ask you to be reserved, we put you into that payroll audit and ask you as an individual with no one else around you to do a payroll audit of 5,000 employees, then can you do it, Kim? Absolutely, you can. But will it drain your energy? Yes, it will. Will it shortcut your internal battery? Yes, it will. So, actually, could we get better value for money giving you a job that gives you that independence, gives you an element of social, gives you driven and flexibility? 100%. So how do we get you on your A game 5 days a week? Well, we don't put you into a payroll team. Okay. So again, we ignored all that advice and we recruited Kim, who actually sits in the top right. Now, this is fictitious, so don't worry. But if that was our team, and this is whereabouts I want you guys to add comments to the chat and feel free to comment yourself as well, Kim. But actually, if we had that situation and we knew that this was the team that we were going to have, what do we think would go wrong here?
Well, I think that me being the new recruit, seeing this and actually probably having been in this dynamic before, I'm going to be rubbing up the other people the wrong way. I'm going to be pushing the boundaries. I'm going to be a square peg in a round hole.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
I
Absolutely.
might be absolutely amazing at doing the thing, but I may have a detrimental effect on the team morale and the inner workings of the team.
Yeah. 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 Yep. It's not what you do, it's how you do it. You would, in their eyes, leave a trail of devastation behind you, because you wouldn't be dotting the I's, crossing the T's, and again, this is made up, this bit. Okay. So straight away, even before we onboard this individual, we can predict what's going to happen. Now, if it's a strategic decision that we need somebody in innovation and agility, then we can say to this individual, look, at times it is going to be really lonely. We know that it's going to be 3 versus 1, and actually, as a leadership team, if you feel lonely, if you feel that you're not heard, come and talk to us, because we know that it is going to feel like that. If we don't and we just let it happen, then we can predict that there's going to be disengagement, there's going to be conflict, there's potentially going to be bullying. These 3 bottom left, they can predict what each other's going to wear tomorrow. They're that in tune. There's going to be communication issues. And what does that mean for a team? There's going to be payroll errors. So ultimately, you're not going to be paying your employees properly, which is going to lead to bigger disengagement. Okay, so this is a new team. So this is myself, Pierre, and Dave, all PI practitioners. And what we do when we start to look at the team dynamic is we give this team a team type, and this team type is a bolstering team. So we're social, energetic, we're an innovative. My God, I can't speak. And we also look at the strategy that we're pursuing. Okay. And the rings on the outer side is our focus of our strategy. So we are focusing equally on people and teams, but we're also focusing on innovation and agility. Okay. So for once, and again, this doesn't happen very often, we've actually got a bolstering team pursuing a bolstering strategy. Okay. This is what our team strengths are. This is what our caution areas are. And again, PI is great because it gives the managers, the leaders of these organizations a dummies guide. Okay. But then what? That's all very good. You've got a load of information, but then what do you do with it? Well, actually, what PI is really good at, is about that actionable insight. It removes that now what situation. So it tells us, to improve our team's work style, how do we make group decisions? How do we balance long-term, short-term goals? How do we break down silos? How do we build a culture to reach our goals? And these are all the true value add activities that you guys can come in and actually not take from good to great, because the internal people can do that now. But how do you take them from great to world class? How do you get them winning the Sunday Times Top 100, the Investors in People Gold Awards? Because that is what success subjectively looks like. Okay. So this is exactly how you become the most important person in any organization, because you embed the behavioral science at the right place with actionable insights, freeing your time up from not being in the weeds to being in the helicopter, delivering the long-term strategic objectives.
Or when you're an external consultant, you are the person coming in like the whirlwind and creating this revelation change,
Yeah, yeah,
revolutionary new concept to them and taking them from great to amazing.
yeah, yeah. But picking up on that, Kim, if you've got an organization like that payroll team and they all sit in the bottom left, then actually, as a consultant, you have to dial up and dial down your behaviors. And you know that you can't be a whirlwind. Okay. Because if you're a whirlwind, you're going to lose these individuals. So that's how we can all of a sudden start to adapt self to get the best out of our clients and the client's team. Okay. So ultimately, why does any of this matter? Well, 75% of employees say that they've put the wrong people in the wrong seats, wasting time and resource. Crap in, crap out. 23% of employees are engaged in the work and the workplace. 23%. Yeah. 77% of employees are doing the bare minimum. They're quietly quitting. Imagine if we flip those stats, the incremental gains, the compound improvements, if we took that engagement score from 23% up to 77%. You would automatically reduce staff turnover. You'll become an employer of choice. You'll have a coaching culture embedded. You'll be winning awards. People would want to come and work for you. Younger generations would go, oh my God, that's an organization that I want to work with. Okay, so this is how all of a sudden, by taking a 4-minute, 5, 6-minute behavioral assessment, can fundamentally change business, but also make you guys the most important person in any business. So I've rattled on enough. I'm sick of my own voice. So any questions?
So thank you very much, Matt. Just while we are waiting to see if there's any questions that come up in chat, I'm just going to bob some links into chat, which is your LinkedIn, your Black Ink HR, and also a link on how you can get your own assessment.
Yeah.
I did the assessment, and me being me, super, super skeptical all the time on things. And it was scarily accurate, wasn't it?
Uh, yeah. Yeah. So the comment we get all the time is, what the hell can you tell about me off the back of two questions which took me circa 5 minutes to complete?
Yeah,
And and off the back of that, the things that we can say and know about individuals is more than they know about themselves.
yeah,
And don't get me wrong, is PI the only solution for an organization? Absolutely not. Hogan's absolutely amazing assessment. The full Hogan's assessment takes 45 minutes. Do you get more data points out of it? Yeah, you do. But do you get significantly more data points out of it? No, you don't. So depending on what the use is, depending on what tools you should use. But
mm,
for a quick, easy, and to have one assessment tool used across the whole of the employee life cycle, there's only PI that can do that.
yeah. I liked as well the the assessment where it's how do you see yourself and how do others see you? And so when I was doing it, I put on two different hats. I was like, see myself, business me, and then I was like, okay, so if I'm trainer me, and the shift in my in like the assertiveness level or the dominant level was quite significant from whichever hat I was putting on.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So when we feedback, and this is an additional level of information, but when we feedback three profiles. So what Kim was talking about there is self is the authentic person, the person that shows up when no one's watching. Self concept is how you change your hats when you know that you need to go into that specific environment, which is situational. We talk about situational leadership, and it's about having the awareness to be able to dial up and dial down behaviors. But we also give you a profile which is called the synthesis, which is the shadow that we cast. It's how other people see us. Now, it's an internal view of an external view, but it still gives us an idea of how other people are viewing us because they're not viewing us as we think they are.
Mhm.
Okay, because again, it's a different perspective. But yeah, one assessment, 4 minutes, two questions, three profiles that we read back on. So the data points is it's not bad.
For how simple the assessment is, there's it is like I say, it's scarily accurate, and it for how simple it is, you can literally do it. A cup of tea and a Kit Kat,
Yeah,
or other chocolate bars are available. A cup of tea and a biscuit, a couple of biscuits.
yeah.
By the time you finish dunking half a pack of hobnobs, you've done.
I don't even reckon you'll get a quarter of the way through the
No.
whole.
Well, it
No.
depends how many time you dunk. Okay, so there aren't any questions coming in on the chat. Um,
Brilliant.
so yeah, it's I've shared how you can get your own assessment, so that is in there as well. I'll also bob that on the email out to everybody. But yeah, this has been fabulous.
Thank you very much. And just to call out, we are different for a reason. We're not typical. We don't look at HR in a typical way. But we are trying to educate the UK market that there is more tools out there which aren't expensive and are more user friendly. So
So typically, if somebody wanted to bring in the PI to a client,
yeah,
so if the client had said to me, I need you to come in and do some leadership development or some, managing a course for new team managers or something like that. And I thought, well, actually, I think it'd be really great to bring PI on board to do that first as part of the process and as part of the assessment side of things and the analysis. How would I go about bringing it into a client? Would I get in touch with you directly? Could I go straight to PI? What are the best routes for that?
So the route is to come directly to me. PI holds the rights to use PI in the United States. Across the rest of the world, you have to be an associate partner of an organization. And I'm an associate partner of a company called Humanistics, based out of Singapore and Copenhagen. So we support businesses with PI. So if you guys have got a client that you think PI would be right for, then let's have a conversation. Let's talk about the value add which it can actually make to the business, because we're not just selling a learning and development tool. It's got the higher module in it as a standard. So, it may be that you're struggling to get a return on investment, and actually we then start talking about recruitment as well, and it doubles the ROI. Okay. So, but ultimately, reach out, let's have a conversation. If it's right, brilliant. If it's not right, then hey, at least we've had a good chat.
Things it's always worth having a conversation just to see.
Yeah.
And next time I have a client who wants me to do some like behavioral development stuff, I'm going to be thinking, well, actually, is this something that'd help?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, if I've
And
got a client who wants me to develop some presentation skills training, I'm not going to think, well, let's get PI involved, because it's probably not going to help that much. But if I'm creating a course for people who are going to be first-time managers, then absolutely finding out more about themselves, finding out more about each other and what goes into that type of role would absolutely make sense.
yeah, yeah. And the last thing, the reason why PI is different is it's based on headcount. Okay. But then it's unlimited usage. So it doesn't matter. So the likes of Arla Food use it for graduate recruitment. They will put all their graduate applicants through a behavioural and cognitive assessment, and that will tell them whether or not they're going to be culturally correct for Arla Foods. And that's because Arla Foods is a European company.
And on that note, thank you so much, Matt. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. This has been a session for L&D Free Spirits, which is a community for the self-employed within L&D. So you can find out more information about us on our website, ldfreespirits.com. And if you want to connect with Matt, you will find him on LinkedIn and blackinkhr.co.uk. Thank you all very much.